I opened my eyes and stretched out my limbs. For some reason, I felt more refreshed than I had in years. A good night's sleep can do wonders for your body. I heard a noise coming from the main bathroom and turned my head to the left to find out its source. An attractive woman quickly shuffled in front of me before stepping into the shower. I was delighted with her beautifully rounded ass and very large, but relatively firm, breasts. She was one of the sexiest women. A couple of questions immediately came to my mind. Who the hell is she? Why is she in my bathroom? The strange woman looked similar to my wife Bonnie, but the differences became obvious as soon as I looked at her butt and breasts. My wife's butt is wider and her breasts are smaller and much less impressive in every way that could possibly matter. I remained lying in bed, pondering my situation. I was clearly in my own bedroom and in my own bed. Photos on the wall and a pine tree with a red birdhouse outside the window indicated my whereabouts. This was supposed to be my room, and I was pretty sure it was me. Then who was she? I tried to remember last night and found that I didn't remember it. I remember getting up, eating Cheerios, and reading the morning paper. Try as I might, I couldn't remember anything after that. How could I be sure that it was yesterday? When I got out of bed and pulled on my shorts, I had a very unpleasant feeling. As beautiful as a naked woman seemed in my shower, I just had to find out what day it was and try to determine what the hell was going on. I hurried to my home office and turned on my computer. Today, as I suspected, was the 10th of March. Only one day has disappeared from my memory, Friday. Just one day, but judging by the strange woman showering in my bathroom, some pretty important things were about to happen. Pondering the situation, I wandered into the kitchen. As I reached into the closet for the Cheerios, I heard a noise behind me, turned around and saw what my mind refused to accept. A plump, green-haired teenage girl with facial piercings sat at the kitchen table. What the hell happened yesterday? The child didn't even look up from his smartphone in his left hand. Her lack of interest allowed me to hide my surprise and regain my composure. Maybe this is my daughter's friend? It just seemed unlikely to me that my daughter Kate would ever become friends with such a weirdo. But I couldn't think of any other possible explanation for the presence of a child at my table, unless the circus came to town. "So, you're Kate's friend?" I asked carefully. The thumbs stopped pressing the keys on the phone, and the green hair slowly rose, revealing a girl with a pleasant face. She did bear some resemblance to Kate. "No, Dad. I hate this bitch. What a stupid question. Are you hungover, or drunk, or something else? I would never make friends with myself. I don't have enough social skills to maintain friendship even with myself," she added sarcastically. I turned to grab a bowl from another cabinet, trying to hide the shock I had just experienced. This little freak is claiming to be my daughter Kate? How could she think that I would believe her? Was it a joke? Or have I entered the Twilight Zone? I looked around for the damn sign and couldn't find one. No, this wasn't the Twilight Zone or even the Outer Limits. However, everything was weird as hell. The girl went back to texting, so I didn't need to explain why I asked what she so clearly thought was a stupid question. My daughter was an excellent student and quite popular at school. She was strong, athletic, and pretty as a doll. One missed day could not possibly explain her transformation into this female version of Bozo, the ill-mannered subject. I got very comfortable in life using my brain and deductive skills, and decided to handle this strange situation as one of my business transactions. I tried to say as little as possible and learn as much as possible before stepping into any minefield. Then I heard a loud burp and turned around in surprise again. Standing in the kitchen doorway was what can only be described as a big, fat kid. He was probably about 5 centimeters shorter than me and a couple of years older than the green-haired clown sitting at the table. He was wearing an oversized t-shirt that reached almost to his knees with short sleeves, but since it was at least a size 3XL, the sleeves covered his elbows. His hair was cropped, and his man's breasts seemed to rival the breasts of the woman in my soul. What the hell is going on? I watched in amazement as he walked to the refrigerator, pulled out half of the 2-layer cake, and carried it to the table. Then he sat down and started eating it, He didn't even cut a slice, but immediately started eating the whole damn cake. I must have been staring at him because he looked at me while sticking a forkful of frosting into his mouth. "Why are you looking like that, Dad?" "Did you want this cake?" asked this elephant as soon as he managed to swallow a large piece of icing. I slowly shook my head and ran out of the kitchen. My son Jim was a physically strong child. He was a member of the school's weightlifting team and planned to sign up for the football team in the fall. The guy in my kitchen was a fat ass. The only similarity between them was the color of their hair and eyes. Then a thought came to me. These two claim to be my offspring. Then where are my real children? I hurried upstairs to look into their bedrooms. As I partly expected, the rooms were empty. At least they were free of traces of human life, but they were filled with electronics. I was amazed at the various laptops, gaming consoles, iPads, plasma TVs, and some things I couldn't even identify. Both children's rooms contained more crap than Best Buy. When I left Jim's room in complete confusion, I almost stumbled upon the naked woman who had been in my bathroom earlier. She was now wearing shorts and a nice blouse, and she looked damn hot. I stopped in my tracks and waited for what she would say. "Good morning, dear. You slept late today? Usually by this time you are already outside, mowing the 200-acre lawn that you previously called a lawn. Are you all right?" she asked while I stood there with my mouth open. "Yes, I feel good. I'll go mow the lawn right now," I promised directly to her chest. I looked up and saw a smile on her lips as she walked past me and down the stairs. Mowing the lawn is a great time for reflection. You can finish the entire yard without having to concentrate on your actions. Hell, most guys can mow their lawns while they're asleep. Walking around the backyard, I thought about the situation. For some reason, I was sure that the missing day and the strange events of the morning were connected. But how? Sometime later, I was mowing the grass outside the garage when I suddenly had a flashback to the previous day. I focused on this, and gradually, the memory began to return. During the rest of the morning, I vaguely remembered how I managed to end up in my current circumstances. I realized that some pieces were still missing, but I remembered enough to put most of the puzzle together. We, my family and I, agreed to participate in a reality show. It was similar to where wives switch families, but with some key differences. Obviously, one of the biggest differences was that, here, fathers changed families. When I tried to remember how the show went, I wondered how I agreed to all this. There wasn't a single camera operator here. But somehow, everything has to be recorded and later edited. We all had to live as usual. All members of these two families were subjected to some type of hypnosis, in combination with some new but supposedly harmless drug. This will make us all believe that we are actually a real family. Of course, this presented some interesting possibilities. I'd have to sleep with another guy's wife and he'd sleep with mine, but it wouldn't feel anything new or exciting. We must have been programmed to think that we have been married for many years. I thought about how this would limit the amount of sex and the pleasure we get from it. I struggled to believe that my wife, Bonnie, would ever agree to participate in this kind of dubious broadcast, or that I would agree for that matter. Apparently, the drug did not have as strong an effect on me as it should have. I could remember a fair amount, but I still had huge gaps in my memory of the previous day, as well as what I was supposed to do in this new reality that was now my life. Was it a competition? Should I have tried to win somehow? Then I remembered there was no time limit, and how long could this go on? They said it could be days, weeks, or even longer. Everything will depend on the ratings. Everyone we come into contact with will act as if we really were the family we thought we were in our hypnotic state. In our lives, other people can become part of the show by playing themselves. I thought about it and realized it was only a matter of time before someone screwed up and said or did something to ruin the show. It is not easy, especially for school children, to support such a farce, even though the producers tried to select families as similar in appearance as possible. I decided to play along and not show anyone that I had at least partially restored my memory. This fact could have allowed me to better understand the show. what was expected of me, and what I had to do to win, if there was a winner. Hell, I could play dumb in the best possible way. Much better than most, in fact. I put the lawnmower away and returned to the house. The woman playing my wife leaned over the kitchen table, wiping an imaginary stain from the oak surface. I played it cool and stroked her ass through her shorts. She jumped up and turned to face me. I suddenly became worried. Did I screw up? Shouldn't she think that she is my wife? Were there any rules about touching that I forgot? I braced myself and forced myself to smile. "What's gotten into you, Chuck?" she demanded. "You know, I don't like surprises, and I certainly don't want to be rudely caressed in public like some kind of slut." I looked around the room with exaggerated slowness, then turned my gaze to my new wife, whom I decided to call Bonnie, although I knew that she was not Bonnie. To do things differently would mean that I know what's going on, at least in part. Then it occurred to me that every word, every interaction would be recorded in some way and possibly shown to millions of viewers. There must be tiny cameras everywhere. I'm sure I didn't want my friends and family, not to mention the millions of viewers, to think I was a damn weakling. "It's hardly public here, Bonnie," I answered calmly. "This is our kitchen, and you are my wife. So everything is quite within the framework of the Geneva Convention. If you think that it was rough caresses, then I wonder what you have to say about it." As I continued talking, I reached out and squeezed her large breasts. I had to admit this new wife of mine had one hell of a feeder. All viewers will be impressed by my ability to solve the situation. "Chuck, children can come in and see us at any time. Please try to control yourself," the arrogant bitch replied, pushing my hands away from her ample breasts. "Hell, we'll feel the floor shaking long before those two come into view," I countered. "The only thing they can do in secret is eat banana splits." "Now you underestimate our children? What came over you? Are you feeling bad or something else? Chuck, what's going on?" "Well, now that you asked, I'd say what's going on. Looks like about half a kilo a day per child," I chuckled, thinking how cool that would sound to everyone watching. "What the hell is wrong with you that you get nervous over something stupid when your husband gives you a little squeeze? You didn't behave like this on our honeymoon." I dropped that last sentence to make the producers and directors think that I was completely confident that this was my wife and family. I was really starting to get into it. We didn't have children during our honeymoon, and then you treated me with respect. As far as I remember, that first night you promised me that you would never do anything to hurt me or embarrass me. Are you going to keep your word or take it back after all these years?" Fake Bonnie retorted. "Well, since you asked, I guess I'm going back on that promise if squeezing those amazing breasts and rubbing that smooth round butt are things that hurt or embarrass you," I amended. "I will pretty much enjoy these breasts whenever the mood strikes. This is what I can promise, and I will keep this promise." For a few seconds, she looked at me as if I had two heads. Then she simply cleared her throat and marched out of the room with complete disdain. Then I realized that she was probably some kind of cold bitch, and her previous husband must have let her get away with all sorts of nonsense. Then it occurred to me that this is the purpose of the show. It was like the taming of the shrew, at least as much as reality TV can be compared to the Bard's Tale. People would watch, eager to see what the hell I was going to do with the Freak Twins and the Ice Queen. Will I somehow be able to bring the children into at least some form, even remotely resembling people? Will I be able to warm the frozen bitch with whom I was saddled one way or another? I realized that if I could complete these difficult tasks, the show will end up with big ratings and I'll be a fucking national hero, at least to fathers and husbands everywhere. Then I began to wonder if the real husband and father from this family was going to turn my real children into fat toads and my wife into a cold bitch. Doesn't matter, I'll just fix them when I get them back. I really hoped he wouldn't have sex with my wife, the real Bonnie, since she was quite timid and inexperienced. She never had sex with anyone other than me. And why did we agree to appear on this show? Pulling myself out of my thoughts, I walked out and jumped into my car. 2 hours later, I returned home and started cleaning out the garage. I pulled out all the good stuff I had saved for years but never used. There were a whole bunch of them, so I ordered a dumpster on Monday so I could throw out all the crap that was lying around. As soon as I finished sweeping the garage and remembered my new wife, fake Bonnie, PB, came out and announced that dinner was ready. I washed my face and entered our kitchen. My supposed son sat at the head of the table. He had already filled his plate with mashed potatoes, gravy, and 3 pork chops, and was stuffing his mouth with potatoes. Next to him sat green-haired Bozo, eating with one hand and typing with the other. I reached out and snatched the phone from her hand before she realized my intentions. I threw it in the direction of the trash can. He hit it sideways and bounced under a Chinese cabinet. I didn't slow down, and throwing the phone, I jumped up to the Hulk and threw him and the chair back. I felt sick when his head bounced off the floor and the chair broke into small pieces. For a fat kid, he moved pretty fast. He jumped up, his face flushed as he shook his head to clear it. I will sit at the head of the table, and no one will start eating until my mother and I sit down, I said with amazing calm. I'm not gonna live with damn gluttony. Now get your shit out of my way and sit next to your green-headed sister. From now on, you will eat no more than 2 chops and less than 1 kilogram of potatoes, as well as vegetables. So, do you have any questions, comments, complaints? The fat man sucked in a breath, shook his head, and carried the plate and drink to the empty chair next to his sister. PB stood at the stove in complete shock. She was virtually speechless. I couldn't help but think that I was part of a theatrical performance as I turned to my next victim. Kate? I began to feel awkward calling this creature after my beautiful daughter. Never bring your phone to the table again. From now on, you will participate in the conversation during lunch and help your mother wherever you can. Do you have any questions? She smirked slightly before looking down and focusing on her plate. I realized that I would have to work hard with her. I carefully picked up the pieces of the broken chair and carried them to the pile of garbage from the garage. When I returned to the kitchen, the Green Hornet baby and the Vanilla Marshmallow baby were sitting quietly, waiting for me to take my seat. I carried the extra chair to my seat and set it down. Then he moved towards Bonnie's chair and pushed it aside, inviting her to sit down. Still speechless, the woman living as my wife took her place. The children sat with their mouths open, seemingly surprised that I had pulled out a chair for their mother. I couldn't help but think what a jerk this family must be. Well, things were about to change dramatically. It probably went unnoticed, but I cleaned out the garage today. I put all the junk that had accumulated in the garage outside. I'll throw it in the trash container I ordered for Monday, I added. I see you're all on the edge of your seats trying to figure out how this news is going to affect you, isn't it? The woman with the amazing breasts, as well as her offspring, sat stoically, seemingly completely uninterested. Well, everything was about to change. Millions of people will be watching how I handled the situation. I knew that if I did well, I would see my picture on the cover of the tabloids at the local supermarket on Sunday afternoon. Since you're asking, I'll explain what's going on. You children are exposed to ridicule and shame throughout your life. Simply put, you look like hell. If I took you to the beach, you'd be stabbed with 6 harpoons before you could even turn around. I imagined, with some humor, how my TV fans would love me for that. This is unacceptable for me, as well as for you. Now I have their attention. PB's face turned red and she became angry. Jim's grace vanished and he blushed deeply. Kate turned a deeper shade of green, but kept her eyes on her plate. Starting Monday, we will have healthy eating. I contacted a nutritionist and she developed a menu for the next 30 days. Your mother will follow it when preparing dinner, I emphasized, looking into PB's angry eyes. You two will run with me every day after school, and then we will train in the garage on the machine I ordered today. In a few months, you kids will thank me. I believe my belly and breasts will change too, so I will benefit too. It will be fun. My statement was met with dead silence. This bothered me for a few seconds until I realized how cool it would all look on my home screen. These beach balls will get me in shape if they don't kill me. That evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I kept an eye on PB. She casually stripped down to her panties, put on her pajamas, and slid into bed. It was obvious that she believed that I was her husband, since there was no hesitation. There were no hidden glances thrown at Chuck, as any normal woman would do if she was looking at a man whom she had never seen naked before. I threw back the blanket and climbed into bed. This woman may be an arrogant bitch, but her breasts and ass are all a man could ever want, and I was determined to have her. I reached for her chest, but she grabbed my hand. "If you think you're going to get anything from me after that performance in the kitchen during lunch, you can forget about it," she said decisively. "You ruined a good chair and almost gave Jim a concussion. You may have broken Kate's phone and may have caused irreparable damage to the children's self-esteem. What the hell happened to you?" It was obvious that I wouldn't get anything good out of her that night, so I decided to play for my audience. It was a distinct advantage to know that we were being filmed for future broadcast. "What about my self-esteem, Bonnie?" I shot back. "What the hell do you think I feel when my own children walk around like the living dead? I'm ashamed when they see me with these buffoons." "How can you talk like that about your own children?" asked the amazed PB. "You know they are going through difficult times at school. They are subjected to ridicule and bullying almost every day, and now they hear the same thing from their own father at the dinner table. I can't support this." "I can imagine it's hard for them, Bonnie. Hell, I'd be making fun of their asses myself if I were in school now. We were bullied at school too, and my old man showed me how to stop it fairly quickly." "Is it true? And why is it so difficult for me to imagine how your father solves any problems related to social interaction? This man is a social moron," PB added. "So now you're trying to destroy my father's self-esteem, or mine? I'll tell you how he solved the problem. I cried to him that a big kid robbed me. My dad told me to either shut up and deal with it or kick that guy in the groin as hard as you can. I sucked it up and was bullied for a couple more weeks. Then one day I just couldn't take it anymore. I drove the pathetic bastard's reproductive organs into his ribcage with my right foot. I spent several weeks under arrest, but the freak and his friends never bothered me again." I chuckled, remembering this scene. "So you're going to solve our children's problems by making them resort to violence? Tell me what happens if the bullies hit them back, or if the kids get expelled, Chuck Norris. This decision is not without risk, Bonnie, like nothing else in life. They need to learn to take care of themselves, and acting like clowns won't help them, I guarantee it. There are worse things than defending yourself and getting the crap kicked out of you. One of them is beating the crap out without self-defense. Another is loss of self-esteem and suicide. These children need to strengthen themselves mentally and physically," I insisted. "If you hurt my children, or cause them trouble, or embarrass them, Chuck, I will stand against you," Bonnie promised. "You were always too busy with your damn company to spend time with them. Now you're disgusted because, you see, you don't like the way they turned out. I did everything I could, but they need a father who would notice them and care for them. Where the hell do you think we'll find him?" Bonnie demanded angrily. "You're looking at him, baby," I answered immediately. "You know that I received an offer to buy out our company, and I'm seriously thinking about it. If the lawyers and accountants can do something that won't choke us with taxes, it will all be over within a week. That's why I told the kids I would work with them to get them in shape." "Yes? Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, Chuck. You better not harm the children mentally, socially, or physically," Bonnie warned. Monday morning found me surfing the internet after the kids had gone to school and Bonnie had gone to work. I briefly considered following my supposed wife to see if she was allowed to teach my real wife's third grade. I was interested in the question of how they were going to solve this. But then I dismissed the thought. I reminded myself that I should appear to have forgotten about the change in my family. If I started checking where my new wife was really going, it would bring unwanted attention to me. Our high school was quite progressive and gave us the opportunity to sign up online for information about what our kids were doing. We chose this option, so I went to the school website and entered our password. What I found was damn disappointing. Kate and Jim were slackers, to put it mildly. Their grades were barely passing, and their teachers' comments were quite disapproving. Typically, the prevailing view was that children could achieve more if only they worked themselves. I also thought about how the show's producers managed to put everything online, and how 2 kids from someone else's family could be included in my kids' school records, photos and all. I wondered how much it must cost to do a switch like this, and so thoroughly. These guys were good. I spent the rest of the morning cleaning the house. My home exercise machine arrived early in the afternoon, and I spent a couple of hours putting it together in the garage. I was ready when the kids got off the school bus. Children, change into something comfortable, and we'll hit the road right away, I urged with all the enthusiasm I could muster. We'll run a few miles and then pump some iron on this cool weight machine. Then we'll study a little. You'll like it. Jim was confused, and Kate immediately became angry. As I watched her simmer, I realized she had a few bad days ahead of her. I need to call Marcy. Then I have to post something on Facebook before my favorite show starts. So you guys continue without me. Cultivate the father-son bond. Besides, I'm not as fat as Jim. The little shrew grinned. I reached over and pulled the phone out of her hand and put it in my pocket. Then he extended his hand to Jim, and he put his cell phone in it. I put it in my pocket next to his sister's cell phone. There's a new sheriff in town, kids. He's a pathetic bastard, and he's pretty determined. Go and change your clothes. I'll be waiting here. Less than 2 minutes later, both kids came rushing back to find me in the garage, looking crazier than wet chickens. What happened to all my things, Dad? Kate demanded. My TV disappeared along with my console, laptop, iPad, nothing, Kate shouted. Now I won't be able to study or do homework. My room looks empty, Dad, Jim complained. What happened to all our things? Today I checked your grades online, guys, and they turned out to be pretty bad. Looks like all this rubbish didn't help your education much. Sitting around playing games probably didn't help your physical condition either. You don't have a birthright to every damn electronic device known to man. You need to earn it. The first step is to change clothes and go for a run with me. You'll get your stuff back when you earn it. Now let's get started quickly. The kids left, and Jim soon returned wearing sweatpants and a jacket. We waited another 5 minutes, but Kate did not return. I went to her room. The door was locked. Kate, open the door and come here. We're ready to start, I explained. Go to hell, Kate shouted through the door. This looks like a typical teenage rebellion, I announced loudly to myself and my television audience, raising my foot and slamming it into the door, throwing it open. Kate stood by her bed in stunned silence. She changed into some kind of workout uniform, and I was glad about that. I just took her hand and led her downstairs. I made the kids get into the car and started driving. Since we're just getting started and don't want our neighbors to see what pathetic losers we three are, we'll run along the skitter path through our wooded property next to your grandfather's house. This way, no one will see us, and we won't be too embarrassed, I reasoned. Jim nodded in gratitude, and Kate simply lowered her eyes. She was stubborn. When we got there, we easily ran less than 100 meters, and then were forced to walk. I took Kate's hand and pulled her along. I warned her that I would literally drag her along if she didn't start working to keep up. We walked as fast as we could through the remaining 3-mile loop through the forest, and we were all sweating profusely when we finally made it to the car. I drove home and managed to grab Katie's hand before she disappeared into the house. I took her to the garage, and Jim went there of his own accord. My sheeny new weight machine sat there, waiting for us to start getting stronger. I started training with the kids with easy reps and did everything with them myself. I promised Kate that if she worked with us for 20 minutes, I would let her go and take a shower. Then she can sit down to read books. Jim showed some interest in certain exercises and did some of them better than I thought. By the time we finished and went inside to clean up, my arms and chest were very tense. Why doesn't the TV work, Chuck? Bonnie asked after lunch was over. No channels turn on for me at all. I turned off the cable, Bonnie. You don't watch TV that often, and the kids watch too much. The TV in our bedroom is still on if you want to watch it. The kids are determined to improve their grades, and the TV show American Idol is not included in any college entrance exam I've ever heard of, I explained. Bonnie looked at the children sitting with their noses buried in their school books, and then back at me. She then picked up the novel, opened it to her page, and began to read. That night in bed, I slid next to fake Bonnie, reached under her top, and cupped her juicy breast. "I don't think so, Buster. You didn't tell me why Kate's door was broken, and why the kids were so quiet, and why they were studying, and what happened to all their electronics." I explained what happened that afternoon while Bonnie just shook her head in disbelief. "What the hell is going on with you, Chuck? You're not acting like the man I married. You are cruel and indifferent to the needs and feelings of children. You destroy the house, one chair or door at a time. Did the doctor prescribe you medication or something like that? Will you beat me until I have sex with you?" "Damn it, Bonnie. I never force myself on a woman if she convinces her that she doesn't want me. This certainly includes you. Have I ever touched you in anger?" I was curious what her answer would be. Who knows what that ass she was married to was capable of? Perhaps he was a weakling who beats women. "No, Chuck. You know you never came close to hurting me like that. It's just that your behavior has been strange lately, and that concerns me. But I won't tolerate hurting children either," she warned. I rolled over and closed my eyes, wondering how much of the bedroom scenes would be edited out. The next day, after we finished our run, PB met us in the garage with 3 shoe boxes in her hands. "Since you 3 are determined to improve your fitness, I thought you might like some good running shoes," she said, handing each of us a box. We all put them on the next day, and they actually felt a lot better on our feet. "When will you return my phone?" Kate asked a few days later on the way home from our run in the woods. She caught me off guard because she hadn't said a word to me since I kicked in her door. She offered no resistance to our new established order, although it was obvious that she did not want him or me. "Okay, Kate," I replied evenly. "What do you think was a reasonable purpose for restoring your telephone privileges?" "You know what I'm trying to do and why." "What do you think?" I asked. "You want us to get better grades, lose some fat, and get stronger, and look more like kids you can be proud of," Kate suggested. "It will take forever to get as skinny as you want, or to run as far as you need to. How about if I stop dyeing my hair different colors?" I considered her request carefully before answering. "I will say that as soon as your hair returns to its natural color and you get rid of all your piercings, I will return your phone." Kate's face darkened. She crossed her arms and pouted. She never expected me to be so tough. She was stubborn, just like me. The next day, she surprised me again. We were in the car heading home after our feeble attempts at running. "How about this, Dad? I will immediately remove all my piercings and stop dyeing my hair for my phone. It will take a couple of weeks and a lot of washing to get them back to my natural color." "That's fair," she concluded. "Okay, as long as you continue to do your schoolwork and exercises. If you start backing down, you'll lose your phone again," I warned. To my surprise, Kate extended her hand and smiled. I took her hand and shook it. We have agreed to. Jim had been quiet during Kate and I's conversation, so I decided to see if he was going to ask for his phone number too. "Jim, do you want to know what you can do to get your phone back?" I asked. "Not really, Dad," he answered without enthusiasm. "I don't have any friends to call anyway, so I hardly miss it." I felt bad for the child, but knew that better grades in school and better body image would help him immeasurably. Damn the father who allowed his children to plunge into such depths. On the other hand, Jim never slacked on his running or training, no matter how pathetic his running attempts were. I was determined to stay the course. PB was really helpful with the diet. I was more than a little surprised at how she stuck to the plan while still being able to prepare a meal that was both delicious and nutritious. She was truly an excellent cook. She was also a very good mother. I couldn't help but notice how comfortable both Kate and Jim were with her. They discussed movies, friends, school, almost everything, really. Bonnie never preached, but continued to point them in the right direction. This family seemed pretty strong. The obvious weak link was the asshole father. I just hoped that my influence would be enough to lead the children on the right path. I was kicked out of the bedroom. I began to suspect that my so-called wife had also regained some of her memory because she wanted nothing to do with me. For the first week or so, I wasn't too worried as I felt a lot of muscle pain and fatigue from working with the kids. Afterwards, it started to irritate me. I have always had a very satisfying sex life with my real wife, and forced abstinence has never been part of my lifestyle. Finally, one night it occurred to me. I tried to caress PB in bed, and she again rejected my advances. I lost my cool. "What the hell is bothering you, Bonnie? You're acting like a cold bitch. Are you stupid, Chuck?" She was indignant. "I tried for years to get my kids to eat right, and you kept bringing home candy, soda, chips, desserts, fast food, and tons of ice cream." Finally, I gave up. And suddenly, last week at dinner, you announced that you had spoken to a nutritionist and that there was a menu that you wanted me to follow, as if it were my fault that the food I cooked for you at the time was too much. Too many calories and not enough iron, protein, good carbs, and all that crap. You let yourself go and encouraged your kids to be couch potatoes by giving them all these damn electronic gadgets because you're a software genius and you wanted kids to be exposed to that shit at an early age. So now I have 2 fat children and a ball of lard as a husband, who, by the way, shifts all the blame for this onto me. Do you think this might have something to do with why I'm not encouraging you in bed right now, Chuck?" She finished with sarcasm. Wow, I had no idea how much she despised her husband. The guy was a real asshole, if anything PB told me was even remotely true. He was the reason kids got fat, and apparently he was pretty pathetic. I realized that I need to do my job faster. I also realized that she had no idea that I was not her husband. She blamed all his nonsense on my head. It was also clear that the guy's sex life had been in the toilet for some time. PB has largely given up on love and romantic feelings. She felt empty and lonely, abandoned by her fat, stupid, workaholic husband. "Okay, Bonnie," I said softly before deciding to play to the crowd. "I can see that you're a little on edge, so don't worry about giving me pleasure for a few days. I can wait until you feel better about all this." "Asshole," that was all she said, rolling away from me and closing her eyes. I thought I'd give PB a few days to come to his senses before I tried my luck again. On Tuesday evening, she informed us that we were invited to a party on Saturday evening at our neighbor's house. I decided that this would be a night of opportunity for me to score a goal against this annoying but sexy woman who was supposed to be my wife. Yes, I didn't know anything. The party was a couple blocks down our street, so we decided to walk so we wouldn't have to worry about driving after we'd had our drinks. As we walked, I wondered what it would be like. Everyone at the party had to be informed that the real Bonnie had been replaced with a lady from the TV show. How will they deal with this? Will PB be familiar with the people my wife has known for years? How can this knowledge be programmed in a person? Did she have a folder with all the photos and stories of our friends and neighbors? I began to understand the extent to which the producers went to create a seemingly real reality for the show. PB was wearing a low-cut blouse, and her cleavage looked fantastic. I knew audiences would expect me to rock their world soon, and little Chuck was eager to show audiences what he could do. I decided to give PB a little drink and take her home to show her and the audience her inexpressible delight. I saw her mingling with the other participants. How can they all be such good actors? Everyone chatted with her as if they had known her for years, and she knew the names of the guests and their children. Like O.J. Simpson, I was beginning to wonder how deep this conspiracy went. I had a couple of beers and kept the PB in my sights. I couldn't cling to her all night because we were supposedly married for years and that wouldn't be normal. However, I wanted to be prepared if she showed signs of getting a little tipsy. That would be my cue to rush home with her and show the fans how a real man treats his wife in the old bedroom. Then I saw that damn Steve Fargo started hanging around PB. He was married and had 3 children. However, his wife was at home caring for their 6-month-old baby, and he was at a party, showing interest in the treasures under PB's panties. What an asshole. I had to admire his determination. He was not pushy, but persistent. He chatted with PB about this and that, brought her drinks, and even shared some snacks from his plate. It's good that I paid attention to his every move. Otherwise, I would not have noticed how he took PB out the back door. I had been in the house often enough to know that there was a patio and flower garden at the back. It was a pretty good place for romance if the couple were so inclined. I slipped out the front door and walked slowly around the house. I heard them before I saw them, and part of it was because they were in a dark area near an old bench. When I finally saw PB, she fell into Fargo's lap while he was sitting on the bench. I heard the surprise in her voice as she realized the situation she was in. "Steve, you shouldn't do this. We are both married and have children, so please let me leave before we get into some trouble," PB reasoned. "Bonnie, no one will find us here, so don't worry. And besides, what can Fat Chuck do if he finds us?" that bastard asked Fargo. "You're too good for him. You need a man to show you what you've been missing." "Steve, I don't think—" "Ah!" Bonnie squealed when that fucking Fargo pulled her face towards him and tried to swallow her tongue. What little light reached the secluded bench was suddenly blocked by my approaching figure. I was furious, but I could still think about what exactly my fans expected from me. I realized they needed to see me kick Fargo's ass. This would make a good reality show. "What the hell is this?" I growled, yanking PB off Fargo's lap and out of his arms. I noticed that her breasts and the low neckline of the blouse were masterpieces. I realized that when it was all over, she would receive fan mail from fans. Here, Fargo made the mistake of standing up. I swung and hit him in the face so hard that I knocked his hand off. I was about to hit him in the groin before he came to his senses when I heard him growl. To my indescribable shock, Fargo was still standing, but at least he rubbed his chin decently before knocking me to the floor with a right hand that I didn't even see. Struggling to regain my senses, I felt a strong blow to my groin. I bent over in a fetal position and threw up all the beer and hot wings I had consumed throughout the evening. "You're a stupid fat bastard. You should think better before you get involved with a real man. You can't take care of your wife, but some of us can, and we will. She's too good a piece of ass for a lump of fat like you." Fargo laughed before turning and heading back to the party. PB cried as she adjusted her clothes. I managed to get to my hands and knees and tried to stand up carefully. She leaned over and grabbed my left hand. "Just leave me alone, damn it," I managed to wheeze. "You've already done enough." After that, I managed to get up and take a more or less vertical position. I was still inclined to hold my lower belly, but now I could move, so I headed to the sidewalk and turned north towards the house. Suddenly, I missed my real wife and real children. And why did I take part in this damn TV show? Things were going great in my life. We had no reason to get involved in this nonsense. As I walked home, I wondered if there was someone I could call to get me out of the show and reunite me with my real family. Then I looked at the PB issue. If I can't somehow complete the exchange by ending my family's involvement in this TV fiasco, I will at least rethink my actions towards her. Was it my responsibility to take my damn frigid wife with me? Especially when she was only frigid with her stupid husband? Hobbling along the sidewalk, I decided I'd had enough of her lousy attitude. Let her fuck this whole damn area. What difference does it make to me? I'll still laugh when the show is over, and she finds out that the whole country has seen what a liar she really is. I'd like to see the look on her face. When I got home, I could barely get upstairs. I grabbed my clothes for the morning, as well as a bucket in case I vomited, and headed to the spare bedroom. I lay down in the fetal position, contemplating what an ass I'd made of myself. Finally, sleep took me away. The next day was Sunday. The previous 2 Sundays, I took the kids for an early run. This morning, I stayed in bed, feeling sorry for myself. My genitals showed surprisingly little effect from Fargo's rough treatment. My chin didn't really hurt much from the impact last night. I was just depressed about my recent failures. Who would have thought Fargo was such a badass? Then I got a real surprise. There was a soft knock on my door, and it slowly opened to reveal Kate, or at least the Kate of this reality, standing in her running clothes. "There you are, Dad. I'm guessing you and your mom had a fight because you're sleeping in the guest room. I don't want to bother you on Sunday, but you yourself said that we will be running early on Sunday morning. Are you ready? Jim is getting dressed, so we're waiting for you. It's already light." "Okay, Kate, I'll go with you. Just give me a minute to get ready," I asked, thinking about what had just happened. Kate was actually really excited to get out and run this 3-mile course. This was supposed to be the silver lining in my damn dark cloud. As we drove toward the wooded area where we usually ran, Kate chatted. She seemed happier now than she had ever been since the day I first saw her sitting at her desk, typing on her smartphone as if her life depended on it. I didn't want to spoil the moment, so I didn't elaborate on the reason for her apparently positive change in mood. I was happy to see that her hair had turned a very light green. She clearly kept her word about not wearing makeup anymore. Jim seemed pleased too, as he answered his sister's questions and taunts. I had success with children, but with PB, everything was bad. Over the next few weeks, we settled into a status quo. The children seemed happier. I gave Jim his phone when he showed me that he had improved his grades. Kate's hair had finally turned a very beautiful dark brown color, and the holes in the piercings were barely noticeable. She could now use the plasma TV as a reward for raising her school grades a notch higher. PB and I were still sleeping in separate rooms and barely talking. I don't know if she was angry because I ruined her enjoyment of Fargo or embarrassed because she was caught kissing me. It didn't really matter as long as she didn't touch me. I was satisfied that the audience saw that I was not some henpecked bore. I was determined to prove to everyone that I could get along just fine without her. At the end of June, Kate asked if we could start running in our area instead of going to the old Skid Row to do some conditioning. Since the children and I had improved significantly in the couple of months that we had been studying, I agreed. When we went outside to start our run the next day, two girls wearing running shorts were walking down the road. Kate ran towards them. Then she presented them to me. "Dad, Jim already knows these girls. The blonde is Chris McLean and the redhead is Hope Lawrence. I was talking to them recently about how we've been running for a couple of months and they want to run with us, or at least with me. They're on the school cross-country team and they want me to go there next fall. If they think I'm good enough, I'll join the team." We started jogging and in about 30 seconds, all three girls were over the first hill and out of sight. I didn't realize Kate had improved so much. "Well, Jim, it looks like we, the two laggards, will run together in the rear guard. We'll never keep up with them," I chuckled. "What do you mean by we, paleface?" Jim asked, quickly accelerating and moving away from me. I was wondering how the hell a fat kid can run so fast, watching him go into the turn in front. Then I suddenly realized that Jim wasn't so fat anymore. With grim determination, I also began to run faster. By the time I finished my 3-mile loop and staggered out onto my path, Kate and Jim were showing Chris and Hope the exercises they did on our weight machine. "Wow, Jim, I didn't even know how strong you were," Hope said. "I can't lift even a third of your weight, and you do it 15 times?" I looked at Kate, and she faked a finger in her mouth as if she was vomiting. I guess it's just that sisters aren't impressed by their brother's exploits. Then I took a closer look at the machine and saw that Jim was pressing the same weight that I use in my workouts, and I thought I was doing good. "Jim, you should join the weightlifting club at school," Chris suggested, watching almost admiringly as Jim finished his exercise. "My brother takes part in it, and he likes it. He says it helps him stay fit and strong for football. You know, next year you'll have to play football, Jim. My brother says the coach is always looking for big, strong guys, especially if they can run as well as you." I decided to leave the children alone and went into the house to drink water. I realized that there was nothing I could say or do that would help Jim's self-esteem any more than these two teenage girls casting covetous glances at his muscles. As I finished my glass, the phone rang. It was Marge Sampson, and she invited Bonnie and I to a house party the following weekend. I couldn't think of a good reason for refusing, so I hesitantly agreed. I've rethought my reaction to the Fargo fiasco. I never gave PB a chance to explain herself on her part. My pride was shattered along with my reproductive organs, and I was humiliated and embarrassed. I needed to consider all options before I ended this marriage. I just hoped another husband would do the same for mine. After lunch, I helped PB put away the dishes. While loading the dishwasher, I mentioned that Marge had invited us to a party the following Saturday. PB's face immediately darkened. "Did you decline the invitation, Chuck?" PB asked nervously. "No, Bonnie, I didn't. It's time to come out of this self-imposed exile and have some fun. I agreed for both of us and even promised that we would bring dessert. Are you ready to come with me, Bonnie? Are you asking me out on a date, Chuck? Even after what happened at the last party?" You haven't spoken to me since then, and I thought you were thinking about leaving me, PB admitted shyly. Because of what happened that night, Bonnie? Did I make a mistake somewhere in what I thought I saw? I asked hopefully. Chuck, if you're talking about seeing me on Steve Fargo's lap while he was kissing me, then you saw everything correctly, PB assured me. But what you may not have seen is what led to this. I foolishly went out to the patio with Steve to cool off and get some fresh air. I had no intention of being involved in any affair, Chuck. He led me to that dark corner and suddenly sat down on the bench, pulling me onto his lap. I was taken by surprise at that moment, and even more so when he started kissing me. Before I could react, you came to the rescue and Steve let me go. I seem to remember that part quite clearly, Bonnie. You walked away, and then he stood up. Then I smashed my knuckles on his chin and got hit on my ass. Things got a little fuzzy after that. Did I hit him in the legs like I was saving you, Bonnie? From my perspective, I felt like I beat the crap out of myself. I was confused and did nothing to protect your honor or mine, I added. Chuck, you didn't know Steve was a boxer. He almost made it to the Olympics 20 years ago. I never expected you to be his equal. What matters is that you did your best for me. I was afraid that you believed that I willingly got along with him. The way you acted when I tried to help you made me think you hated me. I know I shouldn't have let him get me into this situation in the first place. Since then, I've been too ashamed to look you in the eyes, PB admitted. That's interesting, Bonnie. After he beat me so easily, I felt fucking humiliated. I thought I had pretty much ruined all the respect you ever had for me. Truth be told, my first reaction was that you were a slut, and I could live without you. But the next day, when I felt better, I started to think about it all, and it seems like you were pushing him away quite a bit when I came. I know you're not a slut, not even close. But the fact remains that I failed to adequately protect my wife and reacted poorly to her attempts to help me after I was hurt. I decided to just hide in the guest room rather than expose myself to further embarrassment. I was a useless fat piece of shit. I know I'm not Charles Atlas, Bonnie. I'm trying to lose fat and get stronger so you can be proud of me. You always look so damn beautiful and sexy that I'm afraid you're out of my league. You can do better than a fat ass who can't even defend your honor or his own. Do you think I'm sexy and beautiful, Chuck? You haven't told me about this for years. And I didn't fall in love with the muscles. I fell in love with a smart, gentle, loving, hard-working man, PB answered. What's his name? I asked quickly. I'll hire someone to beat him up. Why don't you come back to our room tonight and I'll show it to you, Chuck? PB suggested. I moved my things back to the master bedroom so quickly that it takes me longer to talk about it. It was not yet 11 when I slipped under the covers naked. I lay in bed, staring at the bathroom door. Finally, it opened, and PB came out wearing a very sheer nightgown. Suddenly, I realized that I didn't want millions of people to see her completely naked. This should be an intimate moment between husband and wife, not a soft sex show for desperate housewives and construction workers. Then I remembered that she is not my wife. Most of the men watching will be rooting for me to rattle it off quickly. Tomorrow, I will become a common hero at the water coolers of corporate America. I will also be the guy who knowingly cheated on his wife and was also the direct cause of cuckolding another man and ruining the reputation of that beautiful woman. She was a wife and mother and deserved some respect. Crap. PB slid into bed next to me. She leaned over and kissed me. I felt her amazing breasts against my chest as I ran my hand down her back and down to her ass. She was one of the sexiest women with curves in all the right places. Then I came to my senses. Bonnie, I didn't mention it, but the doctor said I needed to rest my reproductive organs for a month or two to recover from the Fargo blow. I lied, hoping it sounded plausible. Let's just lie in our arms for a while. I should make a full recovery soon. Doc doesn't want me to get too excited. He said it could cause permanent damage, so I shouldn't let myself get too excited. Oh, Chuck, I didn't know how much pain he caused you. Is the doctor sure that you will be completely cured? I feel terrible that I caused so much pain. Is there anything I can do to help you relax, darling? As she spoke, PB pulled back slightly to look at my face. Her wonderful breasts swung freely just below my chin. It was all I could do not to explode right then and there. "Just hold me while we sleep, Bonnie, and I'll be a happy man." As she snuggled close to me and fell into a deep sleep, I thought about the situation. There was no doubt that this TV show would go beyond the internet, and I would be shown many times over the next 20 years. I had to think about what image I really wanted to project. I was lucky that my little trick of knocking Jim over while he was overeating at the dinner table didn't cause him any serious harm. How would I explain to his real parents if I caused brain damage or death? How would I meet my wife if I had this beauty sleeping next to me? When did the children watch the show? I could always claim that I was hypnotized and honestly believed that this woman was my wife, but I knew the truth. I started rethinking what I wanted people to say about me as they gathered around the water cooler talking about the show. I had the decisive advantage of knowing that I was participating in the production of real reality and could try to become one of the good guys. The rest of both families believed that this was reality. I decided that if my wife was actually having sex with her supposed husband, I wouldn't object to it. How could I when we both agreed to appear on this stupid show? What the hell was I thinking when I agreed to all this? I didn't need money. Was this a chance for glory? Did Bonnie talk me into it? Or did I persuade her? Or was it a mutual decision? I just couldn't retrieve any memories of discussing the decision with Bonnie and the kids, and that bothered me. We walked across the street down the block to Marge Sampson's house. PB looked very good but showed much less of her breasts than at the previous party. I kept pulling up my pants as we walked. I bought these a couple of weeks ago because my old ones were getting too big. Now the new pants didn't fit either. PB stayed by my side and I really enjoyed her company. I learned what an interesting, intelligent woman she is. It's funny how much men can learn about a woman when they stop focusing on her charms and actually listen to what she has to say. Steve Fargo showed up, this time with his wife in tow. She was a little mouse and seemed very afraid of this pathetic asshole. No wonder he wanted to fuck PB. There was no comparison between these two women, and we both knew it. I purposely made my way to the beer cooler at the same time as Fargo. "I understand why you're so hot for Bonnie, damn it," I smiled, speaking quietly so only Fargo could hear. "Your poor wife looks like a damn mouse afraid of her own shadow. Bonnie has it all, arms down, breasts up, and she is my wife. You probably think about Bonnie when you have sex with your little mouse, don't you, Fargo? I just want you to know that I am a gentleman. I guarantee I won't be thinking about your wife while having hot sex with Bonnie tonight." Fargo just scowled angrily, but I smiled and walked away. I didn't consider my ridicule to be a real form of revenge, but I decided to save it for a time when I was in very good physical shape and when every minute of my life would not be videotaped. I wouldn't want my plans for this asshole to be witnessed by anyone, let alone broadcast on network television. PB and I had a great time with our neighbors and friends. I may have had 1 or 2 more beers than I should have, but I was far from drunk. I was just tipsy. PB didn't mind at all when we were able to go home. We walked up the stairs and successfully walked down the hallway to our bedroom. I don't know exactly how it happened, but as soon as the door closed, we pounced on each other like animals in heat. I pulled PB's dress over her head and threw it in the direction of her closet. She was tearing off the buttons on my shirt in a desperate attempt to unbutton them, and we had sex. I haven't enjoyed sex this much in 20 years, if ever. After all, we lay side by side for several minutes before she whispered in my ear, "Chuck, that was the best sex we've ever had. Where is my husband and what have you done with him? You were fantastic and I want so much more of what you just gave me, ladies' man." I suddenly realized that I had done exactly what I had decided not to do. I had sex with another guy's wife. Everyone will know about it. Hell, a lot of guys are probably recording this so they can watch it over and over again. I knew I would have done it if it had been anyone else. What should I tell my wife? Were my last thoughts as I fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, I woke up feeling physically great, but emotionally, I felt bad from making love to another man's wife, especially after I had done such a wonderful job with her. How the hell will he ever measure up to the sexy machine now known as Chuck? Then I felt more than a twinge of jealousy when I imagined PB sleeping with another man, even if it was her husband. This very realization upset me more than I wanted to admit. I took my emotions into account, and it was very obvious that I had strong feelings for the sexy woman lying next to me. It made me feel guilty when I thought about my real wife. I could barely remember what she looked like. I got out of bed and used the bathroom. Then he went down to get his bowl of Cheerios. When I reached into the closet, a joyful voice sounded from the table. "Good morning, Dad. Leave at least some energy for our run. Looks like you and your mom had a marathon last night." Kate laughed. Kate! My real daughter was sitting at the table. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail. She was wearing running shorts and a sports bra. Her stomach looked firm and toned, and her legs were long and athletic. "My beautiful Kate is back. Why do you look at your sister like that, Dad?" demanded a voice from the kitchen doorway. I turned in that direction and saw my son, Jim, standing there. He held his shirt in his hand. His chest and abs showed muscle and definition, with a slight hint of waist. His easy smile and deep blue eyes reminded me of his mother. He looked like a very healthy child. Then I thought about my wife. Is she back too? With some trepidation, I returned upstairs to our bedroom. Carefully, I pulled the sheet off the sleeping figure. I admired the beauty of the woman sleeping in my bed. Her breasts were a work of art, and her legs were long and slender. Her face was beautiful. But she was not my wife. I left the bedroom and headed to my home office. I suddenly realized that I had to call Dr. Roberts. He will fix everything. I opened my file cabinet under his name and saw a DVD in it. I pulled it out and inserted it into my computer. What was it, and who put it there? Suddenly, the monitor lit up and Dr. Roberts appeared on the screen. If you're watching this DVD, Chuck, it means one of three things happened. First option, 6 months have passed and you have not found a solution. The second option is that everything in your life has become what we in the field of psychiatry call a big pile of dog shit. And finally, number 3, you have conquered your demons. Look who's sitting next to me, Chuck. The good doctor continued as the camera pulled back and panned to the right to reveal the fat guy. The guy was actually me sitting next to Dr. Roberts. This video is being filmed on Friday, March 9th. You have agreed to allow me to use an experimental hypnosis technique on you in the hopes of helping you rise from the depths of despair and depression. If you feel like you are not coping right now, please call my emergency number immediately. If you feel like you're doing well, sit back, watch and listen. You've been my patient for over a year. You were depressed and you didn't even know why. When I asked about your family, you told me that your children were doing great, that your wife had become unfashionable and unsophisticated, but that you were both very much in love and your sex life was great. However, under hypnosis, you told a completely different story. Your children are out of control. They became fat and lazy. They spend all day playing with their electronic toys and eating junk food, and you actually encouraged it. You were ashamed of the way they looked and acted, and you also denied your role in all of this. You also admitted that you are embarrassed by your own appearance. To hide your shame and insecurity, you left your wife, whom you considered extremely attractive and sexy. Emotionally gone, Chuck. Conventional therapy and antidepressants could do little to alleviate the problem, so today you agreed to undergo an experimental procedure that, when used, was successful in almost half the cases. I'm going to hypnotize you, Chuck. This, combined with the medicine used to treat arthritis, will allow your mind to enter almost any reality I choose for you. You had a choice. Sometimes the psychiatrist will tell the patient that he has entered an alternate dimension. Sometimes we tell him that he has moved forward in time. The option you chose is that you are supposedly on a reality show where you believe that you have switched places with another husband. In this scenario, you won't have to go into denial anymore. This option will allow you to see your family for who they really are, and also encourage you to take steps to correct that reality. Since reality is so different from your perception, you most likely will not believe that this is really your family. All technical aspects of this scenario will be created in your own mind. You will define the rules and goals of the show and how it should work. It would be too difficult for me to try to cover this, especially when all you have to do is give you a suggestion and your imagination will do the rest. I turned around and saw Bonnie and the kids looking at me. The blank expressions on their faces showed that they were not getting into the situation. "Are you okay, Dad?" "You're acting strange today," Kate said. "Is there bad news on the computer?" "I owe you all an apology," I began. "I haven't been a good father or husband for the last few years. I was obsessed with being a big success for my software company and lost all sense of what was really important in my life. The last few months have been really strange for me, and I know I've put you all through a lot. The only excuse is that I wasn't really myself, and I mean that literally. Does this mean you won't run with us anymore, Dad? Won't you come cheer for me in cross country so the other kids can see what a great dad I have?" Kate doubted. "Yes, Dad. What about lifting weights? I was reaching out with all my might for a place where I could kick your ass. Now you're going back to the old father who didn't really care what I did?" asked Jim. "Aren't you going to come to my football games this fall?" "The guys think I'll start at linebacker since Ted Gillow and Tracy Reynolds graduated last year. Does this mean I will lose my amazing lover and my new best friend Chuck? Does this mean I'll go back to being a sexually frustrated elementary school teacher?" Bonnie suggested with a smile. "I don't think I can refuse what I discovered last night." "Mother, there's too much information here, but it's good that you feel that way because some of my friends ask me about Dad. They think he's pretty hot. Hell, they think Jim is hot these days, too," Kate argued. "It's funny because the guys at the weightlifting club keep asking me about my sister and telling me how lucky my dad is to have such a hot wife. It's actually quite awkward for me," Jim admitted. "Wow, Chuck, look what you did to this family," Bonnie laughed. "And now you're apologizing for it?" Kate and Jim both look great and have a lot of new friends and apparently more than a few fans. I have a sexy husband that I have to keep a close eye on lest some nymphomaniac tries to steal him from me. And you have a wife who turns a few heads but completely adores you. What exactly are you apologizing for, and what do you propose to do about it?" I looked at the three of them smiling at me and realized that I had misunderstood something in this wonderful life. Depression will no longer be my companion. "Since we're speaking frankly here, I think I'll take you upstairs now, Bonnie, and show you why you never have to look at another man of any age. And then I'll kick Kate's ass at 3 miles and destroy Jim in a training program that will force him to admit that I'm still the boss and he's just a grasshopper." I grinned. "Dad, all this sounds good, but I suggest you first go for a run with us. Secondly, carry weights and take care of Mom last. It's not like she's going to let you out before lunch, and you know you won't be worth shit after she's done with you," Kate laughed. "Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one."